I remember once when we were still married, my ex-husband saying to me, I can't handle the tone of your voice. We didn't know we were a neurodiverse couple at the time.
Yeah,
Sound of my voice was
is painful.
hurting him. I'm Mona Kay, and I've been the host of the Neurodiverse Love podcast for 5.5 years. We didn't know we were a neurodiverse couple until our 29th year of marriage, and oh my gosh, did we misunderstand each other.
I'm Jodi Carlton, and my journey understanding autism and other types of neurodivergence started with my daughter, who's 23 now. We were married for 19 years, but we had no idea that he's autistic. I'm ADHD, and our son is ADHD.
We're going to talk about neurodiverse romantic relationships, neurodiverse families, life as a neurodivergent person.
I can promise you, whatever you ask, we'll have experienced it ourselves, or we've had clients who have. So send us your questions and your comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
I'm so glad that we've both gone, on our healing journey and have been able to help others heal. I think that that's really, really important. I feel like, the messes that we've experienced have become our mission and our pain has become our purpose, dealing with other people's pain to help them, heal.
Mhm.
But, yeah, you don't know what you don't know. And
Mhm.
then when you know better, you have an opportunity to do better.
Yeah.
So, when I understood my challenges in communication, I became a different communicator with my daughter, with my friends, with my partners who were a different neurotype than me. And also, I think the sensory piece is a big one that comes up for a lot of folks who are in neurodiverse relationships.
Mhm.
They don't understand that one partner, it's usually the autistic or ADHD partner, may be feeling physical pain from a certain
Mhm.
touch, from certain types of clothing, from, a fluorescent light,
Oh,
from
I
a
think
scent.
ADHD too. I
Yeah.
I definitely have sensory challenges. I can't stand fluorescent lighting.
Oh,
Um,
really?
and
Okay.
and I, there's I'm very sensory defensive. Like I can't handle scents like candles
Mm,
and perfumes or strong smells. My throat just closes up, and I can't deal with fluorescent lighting. And I think the research is also very clear that different sensory profiles is one of the biggest predictors of a relationship challenges.
yeah.
Because if one of you's really avoidant and and I want to emphasize this is not behavioral. This is not a preference, this is
Yeah.
not a choice. This is like your body reflexively being averse to something
Hmm.
and your body can't tolerate it, or to a certain, differing degrees. And so a lot of couples end up arguing about, how could that be so bad?
Right.
Just push through it. And it's like a reflex that tells you, "Whew, I can't do that."
Yeah.
Um,
I remember once when we were still married, my ex-husband saying to me, I can't handle the tone of your voice. It is
mhm,
painful to
mhm,
me.
mhm,
And I think, I don't remember which ear it was. It wasn't both ears. So when we would walk or, if we were in the
mhm,
car, I'd have to be on one side of him or talk away. I think
mhm,
it was the left ear, but I'm not sure. And
mhm.
can you imagine? We didn't know we were a neurodiverse couple at the time. It was so painful for me to hear that the
Yeah,
sound of my voice was
is painful.
hurting him.
Yes,
I
yes.
didn't want to hurt him,
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important for couples that are not sure they're in a neurodiverse relationship to, as you have said before, be a detective. If something
Mhm.
is painful to your partner as far as sensory issues, explore it further, and maybe it could be related to neurodivergence.
And yeah, and be that detective first, because the your body and your nervous system is going to respond immediately with
Mhm.
pain. So you're going
Mhm.
to feel emotionally an emotional pain of, that hurts. When my your husband said the tone of your
Mhm.
voice is painful for me. That that's like, I mean, dagger to the heart. It's like, what
It
do you
was.
mean? And for so many people, that feels like an abusive statement, a narcissistic, a demeaning statement. I can't stand the
But it
sound of your
wasn't.
voice, but it's not. And that's where this can be very confusing, because what can look like someone who's trying to do intentional harm they're quite literally telling you that is actually physically painful for me. It's not that I don't want to hear the sound of your voice or I don't want to hear you speak. It's that it's actually physically painful for me.
Right.
So here's
100%.
another.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Here's someone. Olivia is her name, and she says, um, "I don't know how women don't pick up on it before marriage.
Mm,
Terrifying. I don't think it's possible to be in a romantic relationship with an autistic person. Relationships are based on empathy, trust, and emotional companionship." So Olivia is terrified that
yeah.
you can't see it. So let's talk about it because this is the kind of thing that a lot of people are very terrified that I couldn't see this or what if I don't see it, and so then she's come to the conclusion that it's not possible to have relationships. So what are your thoughts about that, Mona?
I totally disagree because I've
Mhm.
had, since my separation and divorce, I've had multiple relationships with autistic and ADHD men. I have to be a different partner because I want to be in those
Mhm.
relationships. Okay. So it requires me to understand what kind of communication is going to be valuable for both of us, right? So if I want to sit and process my day, then I need to make sure that my partner has the bandwidth, that my partner has had time to decompress, spend time with their special interest, go work out. And then they may have a lot more spoons to hear about my day. But I didn't know that in my marriage, right? If I need emotional support, again, I've got to be very specific up front before I start the conversation about what my emotional needs are, especially if my partner has alexithymia. And
Mhm.
so when you understand what it is you need and you understand what your partner needs to hear from you so they can attempt to meet your needs, because no partner is going to ever be able to meet all your needs, then you can have a wonderful relationship with somebody who's a different neurotype than you. But
Yes.
if you're constantly looking to change that person, so that they process things, communicate, have the emotional reciprocity that you do, then yeah, it's going to be very challenging. And I don't know why you would want to go into a relationship with somebody you constantly want to change. It's not healthy,
Right.
right?
And on it, yes. And the whole it's not about whether or not you can have a relationship with someone who's autistic or neurodivergent. That's not the point. It's the alignment with who that person is, because autism or ADHD or neurodivergent is not the limiting factor in and of itself. It's the alignment between you and that person, because there are so many different variations and packages of neurodivergent traits and capacities to have empathy or sensory profiles, or to there's just so many different, it's just like the neurotypical world. It's
Hmm.
no there's just lots of different variations, and so we just can't say across the board or just make a carte blanche statement that you can't have relationships. And honestly, intimate relationships, partner relationships are just another kind of relationship. And
Hmm.
so when I look at my non-partner relationships with people, so many people in my world are neurodivergent.
Me
And
too.
my children are, my mom is, my friendships I've dated, and I want to talk about that in a second. But um, I have very close, intimate, not sexually intimate, but intimate relationships with these people who are able to reciprocate, who are able to understand my needs when I communicate them and respond accordingly. And I have a responsibility to understand them as well and not expect them to show up in a moment for me that works for me when it doesn't work for their body or their brain. And
Right.
it's not about me just accommodating them. It's a two-way street. Sometimes I accommodate them, sometimes they accommodate me. And that's the reciprocity that is necessary. Now, that being said, there are some relationships that are not going to work. They're not compatible.
Mm-mm.
There's actual serious dysfunction.
Hmm.
There's a lot of reasons why a relationship won't work.
And Jodi, I think this is the thing, I think I've read every single one of the Gottman's books, Julie and
Hmm.
John Gottman, and they've been doing research with couples for over 50 years. And there are certain patterns
Hmm.
that occur in unhealthy relationships. And one of the biggest deciding factors, they say, based on their research, regarding whether a couple will divorce or not, is whether there's contempt.
Contempt. Hmm.
And that is the most serious one. And there are three other what they call the horsemen of the apocalypse. But if you have contempt, and I did, Jody, in my
Hmm.
marriage, I
I
had
I
serious,
certainly did at the end.
yeah, I had contempt. Why can't you do this? Why
Hmm.
can't you communicate like this? Why do you have to,
Hmm.
whatever. I was very contemptuous. And that's not healthy. And so I think sometimes we forget that when we're triggered, we need to look in the mirror at
Hmm.
ourselves. Why are we triggered? What is
Hmm.
dysregulating us? Is there something that we need to heal? Or is that we're not compatible with this person? And yes, it may have to do with your different neurotypes, but it
Hmm.
may have to do with a lot of other things.
Yes.
And sometimes, Judy, I've had folks who are both autistic
Hmm. Hmm.
and
Yeah, me
they
too.
don't connect
Hmm.
because they have different things that they each need. So even
Hmm.
if you're the same neurotype, it doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily have a successful relationship.
Yes. Yes, I've seen that exact same thing, and I
Mhm.
but I've also seen two autistic people have great relationships.
Yes,
It
absolutely.
it really depends on the alignment.
Yes, I agree.
So I'm going to read this one last
Okay.
comment because I think it's important for us to address some of the truly strong, um, painful feelings that people have, or not just painful, but judgmental about autism. So this is another comment on from a YouTube video that says, the guy that I dated and just got rid of,
Mm,
I do believe was autistic. So I believe was autistic. So we don't really even know for sure, but this is what we're
right.
going to blame it on. He would not pick up the phone to talk like a normal man. What's normal? Who wants to hear a woman's voice.
Hmm.
When we had disagreements, he would not answer the phone to talk and would rather
Hmm.
text.
Hmm.
He was always asking for pictures, like sex pics. And he was 41 years old. He was into you for a week or two, then would drift off to somebody new. He would go to bars every week. He had a job as a teacher, which is a little concerning, and disliked the children. He never talked about his daily life, and everything was a secret. He was very passionate intimately, but really would not spend a lot of time with women and preferred to hang around men. He wouldn't introduce me to family or friends and constantly would follow strippers or porn stars and OnlyFans accounts on his social media. Good riddance, 100%. So, the reason I wanted to include this is because
Hmm.
this is all being attributed to autism
Right.
by this individual
And
without
it's not.
knowing for sure that this is autism. And I
Right.
can say these traits and behaviors are not related to autism. What would you say?
I would say that probably most of them are not, but some of them may be.
Let's break it down.
Okay, so I've had a lot of couples who've come to me and said usually it's the male partner, has sees a lot of porn.
Yes.
And, people talk about, maybe it's not a porn addiction. They don't
Hmm.
necessarily like to use that word, but it's definitely impacting their physical intimacy and their
Yep.
sexual relationship.
Yep.
Because the partner will be like, well, I'm literally in the next room and they're on a porn site, right?
Hmm.
So because I have heard from the autistic partner that it's easier to engage in online either
Hmm.
sexual activities or watching somebody or getting those pictures because then they are in control of the whole sexual experience.
And it's easier. It's easier to just get the physical release.
Right,
There's
right.
not the effort that goes into having to engage with somebody else. And that in and of itself sounds and feels really hurtful to a partner.
Yeah.
Um, I'm so glad we're talking about this specifically because there this person's post is one of the reasons why people are so confused about what they're experiencing, because I've seen exactly what you just said too, where there's porn. Sometimes it is addiction, but it's a
Sometimes,
preference for porn, and that does, there's a preference for porn and a difficulty with actual emotional intimacy, because
hmm
it's a language that's not really well spoken, that's well developed. The ability to kind of recognize what my partner, how my partner's responding. Are they responding positively or
right.
negatively? Just, and then the sensory overwhelm. There's so
Yes.
many things, and so maybe we can talk about sex in our next episode. I think that'd be
Yeah.
good. Um,
Yeah.
but some of the other things that she weaves in here, she says he would not pick up the phone to talk like a normal man. So first of all, we have to what is normal actually? I don't like talking on the phone either. I would much rather text you some days because I don't have the cognitive
Yeah.
energy to talk to somebody, especially if I've been seeing clients all day.
Right.
I would rather just have a little text exchange with you than pick up the phone and talk to you. Now, if I'm in a relationship, I'm probably going to make an effort for that. But then she said when we had disagreements, he wouldn't answer the phone to talk. He would rather text. Still, maybe some avoidance in terms of um, communication. Those things, I agree with you. Those could be related to autism. The part that stood out to me that's not is the he was into you for a week or two and then would drift off to somebody new. He'd go to
Yeah. That,
bars every week. That to me does not align with the pattern that I understand to be autism, because an autistic partner is typically very loyal
loyal.
to a fault. And an autistic partner oftentimes will stay in relationships that are not good for them, even
hmm
long term. And so this feels different to me.
Yeah, and this is the thing that we don't often understand when we are in a neurodiverse relationship or we think we're in a neurodiverse relationship. We have to be crystal clear about
Mm-hmm.
what it is we are doing. So
Mm-hmm.
if they did not specifically state we are exclusive with each other, we
Mm-hmm.
are not going to date anybody else and we're not going to have sex with anybody else. There's no reason that he would think that it wasn't permissible and okay for him
Mm-hmm.
to go out to clubs and be with other people. So if that
How,
conversation,
I'm
right?
curious how likely you think that is for an autistic man to be seeing multiple partners, and I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Oh, I think it's very common. I think it's very because I've been on the dating apps on and off for
Yeah.
years. I think it's very common because once things get too emotional or get require too much communication, or there's, I need to spend every week seeing you,
Mm-hmm.
or, I want to have physical intimacy, more often than you do, or whatever, when the demands kind of are overwhelming to
Mm-hmm.
the autistic partner, they may, and I had one partner who did this. He went out and found somebody else
Mm-hmm.
and then told me, I found out on Facebook
Oh gosh.
because it was so overwhelming for him.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of communicating like an adult, he did what he did. And so could it be autism? Yes. Could
Mm-hmm.
it be an avoidant personality? Yes. I mean, it could be so
Mm-hmm.
many things, but the fact of the
Or
matter,
both, and
and it could be both. And I think
yeah.
if we're not clear about what it is we want and what it is we are experiencing as a couple, and we both agree or don't agree,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we can have those expectations.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that the hookup dating app culture has really, in a lot of ways, well, it's enabled or disabled, I guess, so many people, not just autistic neurodivergent people, but so many people, because it's so instant gratification. You meet somebody, you start dating. You don't even start dating. There's like the third date sex. That's like the common thing in dating apps, and so for somebody who has difficulty with the emotional connection and the intimacy, like you're saying, it's easy to just kind of stay in a rotation.
Mhm.
I think that there are two different, with autism, especially now an ADHD person, absolutely. I think that
Yeah.
it's very common for someone who's ADHD or maybe ADHD to just need the dopamine, the newness
Yep.
is kind of what they're craving. But for autistic individuals, men or women, I typically see extremes. So you have someone who's on one extreme who's very much staying in the kind of rotating door, revolving door, seeing the next person, not committing.
Hmm.
Um, and then you've got the other extreme who is someone who's just not, I won't say overly committed, but who will who doesn't believe in or won't be seeing multiple partners, but they'll
Right.
oftentimes lock into a relationship long term and much more serious and intense, or not intensely, but they'll stay in it much longer than is
Yeah.
needed. They'll have trouble letting go and moving on or recognizing that this is not healthy. So I think it's at either extreme. Uh,
Yeah, and I experienced that with my ex-husband. I mean, he said to me, if I had not moved forward on the separation, he would have stayed in our marriage for the rest of our lives. And I said,
mhm.
even though it was so toxic and we kept hurting each other, he's like, yeah. So that
Mhm.
was his loyalty. And
Yep.
now I understand it. But there was no way that I was going to continue to watch us hurt each other. And I
Yep.
see that in neurodiverse relationships on both sides, for the
Yes.
non-autistic partner and the autistic partner. So yeah, I
Loyalty
think,
and aversion to change sometimes. Anything else you want to add?
yeah. So where do people find you, Jodi?
Oh, of course I forgot that. JodiCarlton.com, and it's Jodi with an I. But if you just search my name, even if you misspell it, I think you'll find me.
And
Um,
you, yeah, and you find me neurodiverselove.com,
yeah.
and you can find all my stuff. Yeah, so Jodi, I'm looking forward to lots of great conversations and lots of ADHD moments.
Me too. All right, folks. See you next time.
See you next time.